Hello YouTube, I'm happy to announce that I'm finally posting my first maker video, despite the fact that this took about a year or so to get to. Life gets in the way sometimes, but here it is finally. Growing up in rural United States, I grew up to appreciate the more rustic look a lot of the decor had. So I decided to take that, my love of fire and love of fire's domesticated cousin, candles, and I decided to make myself a little wagon wheel chandelier for my first project. A little forewarning about this video: for the first half of this project, maybe first quarter, I didn't bother to buy a stand, so I'm gonna have to make do with a bunch of photos like this. So, starting right off, the initial design was rather crude and poorly thought out of. A lot of curves and angles that had to be just right, or else the whole wagon wheel would just come off looking really weird. For example, the hub had to have had the circular piece precisely rotated 60 degrees and then drilled into at a right angle, or else the whole thing just wouldn't look right. Not to mention as well this mortise and tenon design here, which was currently beyond my capabilities. So I fixed all these in the next design. Here is the final design I decided to go with. A lot more easier to manufacture, a lot more straight lines and less curve. Here we can see the central hub is a lot easier to manufacture as well. Just 6 spokes going into the center with some wedges to keep them all equally spaced. Each of these rods or dowels would go into each of the outer parts, an inch or two. I decided to go with 2 inches in the end. I did not intend on beveling the entirety of the rods, going all the way from the outer rim to the inner hub. I was planning on stopping the bevel at where the rod goes into the central hub to keep things nice and square, but Fusion 360 wasn't able to show that in an easy enough fashion. And here are the wedges in more detail, just to show how it's going to all fit together. And here are the printouts for the final design. Up top are the outer rim pieces. As you can see, I'd be cutting out 6 of those at 2 inches thick, and down below it would be the inner hub. It would be these 6 wedges and the hexagon sandwiched between 2 of these perfect circles. Now, you can definitely see some issues here, as I did not design for any tolerances and error. This led to a lot of issues down the road and really bit me in the ass when it came to finally putting this all together. And here is the outer rim piece finally cut out of the paper, and here it is present on the rough cut lumber that I'm going to be using for the outer rim. First, we inspect the board for any critical flaws, such as the end here being pretty gnarled up, and a couple of big knots here, but after a quick planing it looks pretty good, and we can now start putting on the stencil for the first piece. Okay, this one's going to be a bit of a speed round to get all these photos out of the way so I can actually start showing video on this YouTube video. Here is the first draft of the first outer rim piece. I had to make sure this one matched the template as best as I could, as any mistakes I make here will follow for the rest of the project. Used a table saw to get rid of 90% of the extra wood, then used a bandsaw to get rid of the extra. Instead, I actually made the good decision to keep the bottom part here square so that I could actually drill in the holes in a square manner. I used a table saw to chop off the edges like that. Now is actually where I put in some thought into this project and find the center point for this piece of wood, and then using a drill press, I put down a 2-inch hole into the piece. As you can see here, nice and square, whereas if I got rid of it beforehand on the bandsaw, it would be all wobbly. And here is the first piece. A little bit of sanding later as well, as you can see from that edge. Not my best idea. Something that's gonna follow through in the rest of the project. A quick visual inspection shows very little overlap with any existing knots and other flaws, so we seem to be all good to cut these out finally. Okay, let's see how it's going to fit together now and how badly I messed up. Yeah, that one needs to get worked on quite a bit. And not bad so far. A little bit trim, but not too much. Maybe it. And extra. So far, so good. And here are all the outer rim pieces back in order for their final processes. And this is what they all look like when they're all cut out and sanded off. Finally all put together, this thing's looking pretty good. Okay, maybe not that good. Okay, mistakes were made, but first project. Here we are inspecting the wood for the inner hub. Looks pretty good. I especially like the red piece right there. Looks very interesting, and only a little bit needs to be chopped off. Finally getting a stand, I was able to record this and capture myself tracing out the outlines for the inner hub. Trying to get as much of the redwood captured in the pieces as well. It looked really nice in my opinion, so tried to make the most of it. I also apologize for the white square popping in and out. I didn't get the best camera angle, and as a result got a lot of my face and forearms when I should be focusing more on the work, but these are all learning experiences. Now, instead of forcing you to watch me record my own forearms and potentially losing my own fingers, I will just summarize quickly now what I did for the inner hub. Using this right angle circular sander that pushes the wood down into the support as opposed to across, I was able to get some good right angles on all the pieces that I have cut out so far. It also worked on the top and bottom parts of the inner hub as well, creating a very good circular shape. So, Here I am assembling the pieces on the baseboard, and here I'm able to tell that I'm going to have an issue being able to recreate this accurately. So I opted to just see how it looks as according to the design. The next challenge was how to replicate that on the baseboard. So I simply cut up the design and turned it into a template to be drawn onto the baseboard. Now here I'm listening to the squeaking noise to see if it's a good fit or not. Too loose and it'll fall right out, and too tight it won't go in at all. This seems to be good. Now at first glance this wagon wheel seems to be in good shape, but when you look closer at the inner hub you can start to see some mistakes starting to pile up. As you can see here, the inner hub does not fit together at all. Far too many factors of safety adding up over time resulted in such a poorly assembled inner hub. I had to make quite a few changes to the final design to accommodate for these errors. My first decision to fix the issues that I made was to sand the inner edges of the wedges for the inner hub, in hopes that that would be enough to fix the issues that arose. The inner hub had a lot of moving pieces, so I decided to just start screwing down the inner dowels using some wood screws I found at the makerspace. I forgot to press record again, didn't I? Here is a dramatic recreation of me installing the pilot holes on the base of the inner hub. Here I'm having a hard time getting it aligned just right, so I had to be very careful of that one, but yeah, I sort of liked this idea. Up until now, I was procrastinating on how I would fix all the outer rim pieces together. I was originally thinking of using wooden tabs to fit them in place, but then I had a great idea that would fit the rustic design I had in mind. Horseshoes were the perfect solution for what I had. They fit the design, and they gave me a good excuse to do some metalworking for this project. The horseshoes were a great solution, as not only did they fit the design, they also came pre-installed with little holes for the nails. Okay, while this monkey tries to figure out how to operate a hand drill, I'll explain what I have in mind. So, at first I sanded off the edges of the inner wedges the best that I can, and at a certain point I figured it would just be better to run the dowels through a planer to slim them down and potentially make some more room that way. So, as a result, I tried screwing down the wedges, as you can see here, and clearly not doing too well at it. This is around the time when I started getting a little impatient with this project, and, yeah, my form was not the best here, and, somehow, it all came together well. Sadly, it was all off camera because I was not in the mood to mess around with a camera and this. All this. But yeah, trust me when I say it was very smart and well thought through, my solution. You just have to take my word for it, though. Okay, now here in the process I got a little impatient and I started applying stain without putting on any gloves, so a little bit of a mistake on my part, but I learned my lesson later on. So I opted to use a cherry stain finish as it looked the best from the tin, and the inner hub and the spokes were all made out of cherry, so it just fit. And I was very happy with how it looked when applying it, so I accidentally applied it on the wrong side of the top part of the hub as well. I just got a little carried away. Now here I'm thinking of what to do next, and I opted to apply the cherry finish to the outer rim as well, despite it being made out of pine. I was a little iffy about it, but I opted to use the cherry finish on the pine as well, as there was no other finish that quite fit the theme I was going for. There was this one black finish that looked kind of nice, but I figured that it would hide the horseshoe attachment points. I was very proud of that little innovation there, and I wanted it to be easily seen. So I opted with the cherry again. Here I'm applying another layer of cherry stain to the outer pine rim. It doesn't seem to be taking on the cherry stain too well, so I decided to use multiple layers. I also applied another layer to the innermost hub, as I really like the deep red cherry stain at the very center of the wagon wheel. Here, I'm putting on the last layer of stain for the outer rim, with the other pieces being thoroughly coated as it is. Finally looking pretty good compared to the rest of the wagon wheel. Now here, I decided to apply a darker stain on the outer rim of the wagon wheel, as that would be where the wagon wheel would hit the road if it were to actually be used as a wagon wheel. I think the blacker stain really accentuates the cherry stained pine wood outer rim. Finally, it is time to glue this thing all together. Since the inner hexagon no longer fit, I decided to make a little memento to put inside as a little memory box of sorts. I also did some sanding off screen to make sure the glue had a nice surface to adhere to. I had to get rid of some of the nice stain on one side, but it's going to be glued and hidden away forever, so doesn't really matter. I wanted to be very I wanted to be very patient in the application of this glue, as I wanted this to stick together for a very long time. I also used the correct tools to make sure that it was all evenly applied, so that this thing would last a very long time and would be appreciated by my children and my children's children. As you can see here, when I have tried... Here's the point where I decided to just get this project done before I'm dead. I clamped everything down the best that I could to make sure it wouldn't slip around and mess up later on. As a result, a lot of glue came seeping out of the edges, so at least I knew that it was being held down properly and a lot of surface area was making contact, so it should last for quite a while.
Nothing's working!
Wait, SpongeBob! We're not cavemen! We have technology!
Now that my wagon wheel was all clamped together, I came to appreciate its red body with black accents, so in honor of any other original content of a similar color scheme, I decided to give it a proper warning. So, after a couple days of letting it dry, I took off the clamps, saw a couple of divots from using a little bit too much elbow grease, but overall it looks pretty good. I would certainly call that a wagon wheel if I ever saw one. And this was actually the first time I ever suspended it. So, as you can see, she's a little off kilter, but overall, not bad. Not bad at all. Now in the home stretch, I decided to use these pretty mason jars to hold the candles. So, I unwound all these coat hangers. I flattened them out on this anvil. Trimmed off the edges. Measured how long I had to work with. Using a set of square-headed pliers messed up the loop on the first one. Using needle nose pliers on the second one messed up the binding where the legs met, and it was just off. This time I tried squeezing the legs together to make it different, and it was different. This time I tried using a metal clamp instead of a wood clamp, and I wasn't able to get enough leverage here, using just a short awl. So, I got some more leverage, and I broke the loop. With more loop and more leverage, I was able to get something resembling what I wanted. However, it was a little wonky. Now here, I had the good idea of pinching the legs together before I tried spinning them around into a loop. Seems the idea got a little confused there for a moment, but eventually I was able to get somewhere and it broke. Finally, I had the good idea of having the loop be stationary and the legs rotate around into a bind. the legs were off to the side a bit and weren't quite symmetrical, and as a result, I had to fix them in post on the anvil. This was a lot of hard work and good ideas to create some nice products that I didn't even use. Now here I'm putting on a couple layers of floor ceiling poly coat. I don't have any intentions of walking on the wagon wheel chandelier, but it is going to be outside for maybe most of its life, so I think coating it with this would definitely help it last longer out in the elements. Making sure to really get in there, covering all the surfaces and crevices to make sure nothing gets missed at all. Oh my god, nope! Okay, guys, We are in my garage setup for the first time, and we are gonna go mount these. Oh, let's see if this thing can focus. We're gonna mount these little hangers to the outer rim of the mason jars. Man, it's hot. Anyways, I don't know if solder's gonna be enough to hold it on, but I'm afraid that the welders back at the shop are gonna be a little bit too much for this thin metal, so let's see how it goes. Okay, first try, so let's see how this goes. Here it is. A little rusty at this, so let's see if I still know how to solder. Yeah, a little messy, a little messy. Oh, we're getting somewhere. Okay, not getting anywhere fast, but let's see if this works. Let's read that. Solder is technically designed for working with copper. I was told this might have worked back at the workshop, so looks like I was misled. Let's see if there's something else I could do to make it stick. Okay, I had an idea. Maybe if I tried to... Oh, let's see if I can get you one. I'm gonna see if I can try to abrade the surface here to have the solder have something to hold on to. And instead of sandpaper back at the workshop, I'm gonna use this brick. I'm not gonna show you this. Okay. Oh. Surface has been abraded a bit. Just a tiny bit, but hopefully I'll be able to get some of the stick over here. Remember, guys, it's rustic, not crappy. So long as you call it rustic, you can make it as bad as you want. Okay, making some... I think I'm making progress. Maybe not. Maybe not. Let's just really put it on thick, I guess. See if that works. I got a bad feeling this ain't gonna work, but gonna stick through with it for now. Yeah, not too hopeful. Okay, after letting it cool for a little bit, it actually works. Look at that. Huh. Now we're gonna do a little weight test to see how much it can hold. Come on. Not much, not much. What to do next? Seems like there's this film here that's actually doing all the sticking. So it seems to be sticking to the metal that came from coat hangers pretty well. But there's just some coating. I'm assuming this is stainless steel, so kind of fucked that way. Anyways. Don't know what else I could do. And I'm not using super glue. Okay, guys, I had a great idea. I was planning on wrapping this twine around the outer rim here, and then putting on the lid so it'd be a nice tug fit and try making a knot. And then I realized I could just do that. Maybe. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe I should do the rope trick then. Okay, guys. I kinda cheated and just opted to have the twine just be... oh, have the twine just be bit in between the outer rim and the actual glass itself, but seems to hold up pretty well. And looks pretty good too. So I'm gonna do that to the rest, and let's see if we can get this thing done today. So this is how I'm making the twine bite into the sides. Just like that. Put it on a little bit and just shorten up the twine so you have a little bit left over. Now, the tricky part is making sure they're on opposite sides of the metal, otherwise it'll be off balance. Like that. Not too bad. Okay, so finally got all the candles and the jars attached to the main chandelier piece, and they seem to be looking pretty good. Hopefully I gave these loops enough slack so the fire's far away enough, doesn't burn them off. Hate to have that falling in the middle of the night. But yeah, I'm gonna wait until night and see how this bad boy looks. I'm so happy to see how it finally looks. It looks amazing hanging up there from my little garage man cave. The crystal pattern mason jars were a great touch as well. And I love the shadows it places on the ceiling, and I can't wait to finally give this gift away to my family so they can just have a little reminder of me while I'm out here where I'm currently at. But yeah, this was a lot of fun making this wagon wheel, and it was a lot of fun making this video. And I hope to make a lot more in the future, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Take care. Bye.